Hello! So today we're just going to briefly go over my usage for my Natasha Denona palettes in November. I spent the entire month only using my Natasha palettes, and then we're going to get into my December palettes and what that project is going to look like. It's already December 8 when I'm recording this. So the December project is well underway, but I am noticing right now as I'm sitting to film this video that there are some interesting patterns in my usage of my Natasha palettes in November, which, I don't know, it makes for an interesting recap. Hi, my name is Jo. I play with makeup. And sometimes I organize my palettes in themed projects so that I can spend dedicated time with them and I can give them consistent use throughout the year, even if it is through a condensed season. If this kind of thing looks fun to you, please consider subscribing. Let's get into my recap of Natasha November. Natasha November was just about spending the entire month only focusing on my Natasha Denona palettes. I have 7. Is it 7? 3, 5, 6, 7. Yes, it is 7. 2 are the larger ones, 4 are middies, and 1 is a mini. So basically what happened is that I have 2 groups of number of uses in the month. So we're gonna go over those 2 groups. I have 2 palettes with 3 uses, and then all the other palettes have 4 uses. I was concerned with my usage for the month because I was sick for like almost a week where I didn't wear any makeup, but I did manage to get some pretty good consistent use, and I hit 2 pans. You'll get to see them actually in these first palettes. These 2 have 3 uses each. Let's start with the oldest Natasha Denona palette in my collection, which is the Zendo palette. And this is the new pan in Aura. So we have this one, we have this one, and we have this one. So I use this palette 3 times. I somehow managed to kind of go through all the sections in the palette and make sure that I used kind of shades from all the color families. I think this green, which is probably my least favorite shade in the palette, is one of the very few that didn't get any use in this month. I actually think it was the only shade that I didn't use in one look or the other. For the record, if you ever want to see my eyeshadow looks and how I team up palettes in a specific monthly project, go follow me on Instagram. Same as this YouTube channel, Jo Sparkly. I post pretty much my looks every work day, sometimes on the weekends if I'm wearing makeup. So if you need ideas on how to combine eyeshadow palettes in your collection or even color combinations, I think that's a pretty good place to go. I try to be as creative as I can and use palettes in the most consistent way possible. So Zendo is one of my favorite Natasha Denona palettes. I really like the color story. I have acknowledged multiple times that there are inconsistencies in the formula, in my opinion. I wish that she would re-release it with her better cream to powder formula, which I think that, does appear in some of her future palettes. But nevertheless, I managed to use it 3 times and hit 1 pan. So I consider that a fantastic success. And then the second one that I used 3 times in November was the My Dream palette. I've had this palette for about 2 years. I got it in a Beautylish Lucky Bag. And it is, in fact, one of my favorite Natasha Denona color stories. This time around, in the 3 looks that I did, I pretty much stayed within these more neutral shades. I didn't really go super crazy, although I did use this as a deepening shade because I think it's great. This is the better cream to powder formula from Natasha Denona. I think that we start seeing like the definitive improvement of her formula here. My Dream was a holiday release 2 years ago, and we definitely start seeing a change towards kind of that more wet looking kind of formula that she has in her palettes now, more impactful shimmers than what she had, for example, in Zendo. But I used it 3 times and I'm, quite pleased about that. I want to use it a little bit more during the winter season. So I don't know, because I don't see myself putting it in another project for a couple of months. So I don't know, maybe it needs to be a guest palette on the weekend or something like that. But 3 uses in November for My Dream palette, which means that every other palette that I use has 4 uses. So I used it 4 times throughout the month of November. Let's start with the other pan that I achieved this month, which was on the Natasha Denona Mini Nude palette. And I think it's pretty clear where it is. If you don't know, well, as you can see by the very battered package in this palette will be retired from my collection in June when I leave the Middle East. I don't think that is safe for this to be packed with anything. So I will use it as much as I can between now and June, and then I will discard it because it's just not in good shape. But I did use it 4 times during November. It's just a very straightforward palette to use. It can be built up really easily. And if you want a first Natasha Denona palette and you like warm neutrals, I think that this is a really, really solid option. Then we have the Retro palette, also with 4 uses. And this was probably the palette that I use more often for one and done shades. More specifically, this shade, Jude. It's one of my favorite shades in the palette. I used it again 4 times. And usually what happened was that I would use kind of one of the mattes to set my lid and build a tiny bit of depth, and then one of the soft shimmers. All the looks here were fairly soft and subdued, or one and done shadows like the looks that I did with Jude. 4 uses for Retro, which again makes me very happy because I got it last spring. I had to wait until the summer to get my hands on it, so I haven't really had it for that long, but those 4 uses, plus the week that I spent with it in October as my guest palette while I was on vacation in Thailand, means that I've used it quite a bit in the last few months, and that makes me very, very happy. 4 uses as well for Biba. Again, I consider this probably one of the best Natasha Denona palettes. However, I do think that the way that Natasha has decided to kind of remaster Biba, because I do think that eventually this palette will be discontinued, was by creating I Need a Nude and I Need a Warm. So if you want a warmer version of Biba, or like an extension of the warm shades of Biba, I think I Need a Warm is for you. If you want an extension of the cooler shades of Biba, then I think that I Need a Nude is for you. Not gonna lie, I had to white knuckle my way through Black Friday to not buy both of those. I actually don't know which one I would buy first. I would maybe buy I Need a Nude first because I think I look better in cool tones. Although I've heard very, very good reviews from medium tan skin tone girlies about the way that the I Need a Warm shades translate on the eyelids. They will be mine in the future. I just don't know when. 4 uses for Biba. That also means 4 uses for the next 2 palettes, which are all the palettes that we have left. And that's gonna be the Love palette. 4 uses here. I mostly stayed within the pinks and the reds, used some of these softer shades over here. I think I used that red once. Didn't really go into the purples, not for any bad reason. I just didn't. I don't know. I spent quite a few looks going for like more softer shades. I don't really know why. I did use Pure Love at least once as a one and done shadow because I do think that this translates really well that way. If you would like me to do a video of one and done shadows within the Natasha Denona palettes that I have, let me know in the comments and I can put that together. If you want me to do it for another brand like Pat McGrath, that I also have a lot of eyeshadows. So if you think that you would like to see maybe which Pat McGrath palettes have good one and done shadows, let me know and I can put that together. Hopefully in the next couple of weeks, because I have winter holiday coming up and I have the best intention to film more. We'll see if that actually happens. 4 uses for Love. I will say this, I am starting to notice that the formula in some of these needs a little bit of extra buildup. So I'm wondering if the formula is starting to change a little bit. Some of these had to be built up quite a bit on the lid. I had to kind of put quite a few layers on. So I'm wondering if the formula here is starting to show some age, some fading, some inconsistencies. Still love the palette, still will use it, but I definitely noticed that the mattes were giving me just a little bit more trouble than they used to. Last but not least, what I think is the best palette Natasha Denona has created, which is Metropolis. And again, I did 4 looks with this one. I used it 4 times during November. Mostly kind of these warm brick terracotta shades. I also used the greens. The greens are some of my favorite shades in this palette. I think they just kind of knock it out of the park every single time. I also use this row of browns. I always go here. I call this the Biba row of Metropolis. It makes me feel like a row that should be in Biba, but isn't. I feel like these shades are slightly more neutral than some of the browns that you find in Biba, but I love this row and I use it often. I also use some of these more gold bronzy shades. Didn't go too much into like the more intense blues and teals and that sort of thing, but the formula of Metropolis stands the test of time. I still think that even with her better formula coming out recently, I think that Metropolis is still probably the best palette that she's ever done. But if you think that she's put out something better than Metropolis in the palettes that she has in the market right now, let me know in the comments. I would love to have the conversation going. Now, let's go into the December project by actually going over the palettes that I've used first. So we're 8 days into December. I've used quite a few of the palettes that I kind of incorporated here, and the theme that I'm going with overall is kind of sparkles and chromes. There are gonna be a few holiday looks here and there, but you know, it's December, teaching is tough. I wanna feel festive. So I'm using my sparkliest shadows during this month just to kind of boost my spirits, if that makes any sense. So let me just go over some of the palettes that I have already been using in December. Let's start with my Natasha Groundwork palette, and I put this in my December project because I need something to give me some base shades, either lid setting shades or shades that allow me to build some depth in the crease. As I start showing you the palettes that I have in the project, I think that you'll understand why, because a lot of the eyeshadows that I have in the December project are either single shadows or very strong metallics, duochromes, multichromes, that, you know, I could use them by themselves, but they do need a little bit of scaffolding around them. So that's why I'm using this palette. I've already used it twice in December. Nope, that is not correct. I've already used it 3 times in December. Next up, we have the Dragon Fruit palette by Cleona and Emily Violet Marie. These don't look like shadows that maybe you'd be inclined to use in December or in the winter time, but I actually think that they can be quite beautiful, especially because of how sparkly they are. I used the shade Refresh and topped it with Effervescent, which I think that technically is a highlighter, but it makes for a beautiful eyeshadow topper. I expect to use most of these as one and done shadows with these two as toppers for easy, more colorful looks. I've used it once in December. Next up, we have the Nomad Tokyo Harajuku palette. And you might be thinking, in what universe would you use a pastel palette as a December palette? But mainly, I wanna use this row on the bottom because many of these shades are duochromes and multichromes, and I figured that it would be a good moment to use them as one and done shadows. However, I actually did a really nice, cool tone, rather icy look with these 3 shades on the bottom, and I do think that when combined properly, these can make a pretty winter appropriate look. I even got kudos from the Nomad Cosmetics social media account, you know, just telling me that, oh, we wouldn't have thought that you could get such a cool tone look out of Tokyo Harajuku. Kudos. So that was really exciting. I think that it's a way to add color, and I do think that some of these shades can be played with and kind of washed over the lid in a way that is not way too colorful or way too borderline spring for winter. I mean, who cares? Wear whatever makeup you want any time of the year. If you want to use these shades in the middle of the winter, do it. It's not like we don't need color in the winter. We kind of do, since everything becomes, in some places, you know, so barren and depressing. So, but I did use these shades for the look that I have used. So 1 use for Tokyo Harajuku from Nomad Cosmetics. Next up, I've also used my Kaleidos Futurism 3 Astro Pink once. I will say this palette probably has my favorite black eyeshadow of all time. I love this sparkly black. It is super long lasting and it makes for a beautiful eyeliner shade. I use these 3 shades, actually no, I use the entire palette in one look, believe it or not. I was really proud of that because sometimes I find it hard to use a single color story in one eyeshadow look, but I actually managed to do that. I'm curious to see how I can, you know, play that by emphasizing other colors or putting them in a different order than what I did before, but I've used it once already. This is, again, what, Astro Pink? Yeah, Astro Pink from the Futurism series from Kaleidos. 1 use. Next up, we have the Pomegranate holiday release from 2021, which is Mothership Mega Celestial Odyssey. And really, I chose this as part of the December project because it is a very shimmer heavy palette. I use a lot of these shades as one and done shadows often, so very easy pinky neutrals. So when my thinking ability is nowhere to be found because I really need winter break to arrive, I'm gonna probably be pulling from here. 1 use for Celestial Odyssey. Then we have 3 Pomegranate quads. So the 3 Pomegranate quads that I own, I've already used all of them once. First off, Iconic Illumination, which I think is probably one of the best quads that she's ever done. These big shades are everything. They make for beautiful eyeshadow looks. I use this shade as my crease shade and to build depth for my holiday party look last Saturday. And it's one of my favorite shades to use for like a really sparkly, smoky holiday party look. I've used this once and I expect to use it again because it's one of my favorite glam quads to use. Then I also use Ritualistic Rose. I actually use this one today and I'm wearing this topper shade today along with another eyeshadow single that I'll show you in a minute. This one I love for, you know, the eyeshadow topper quality of these three. And then I've also used my Bronze Borealis quad once. And I struggle to see this as a bronze quad. To me, like these two shades pull really mauve on me. I don't mind that. I like it. This is a very easy, cohesive, one-trick pony. I mean, it's not a one-trick pony. You can pull more than one look from here, but it is a really straightforward one where mix and match the shimmers and then build depth with this one. It's a really straightforward one. As you can see, these are not baked shades. These are not like special shades like the other two quads, so it's slightly different. However, I still think that the quality holds. It's just a little bit more in line with like the quality of the big holiday palettes. These are not like the super special shades from Pat McGrath, and this particular quad, some of the others are. And then we have a couple of single shadows that I've used. I've used Bear from Glaminatrix Cosmetics once, and then I have used two eyeshadow singles from Sydney Grace once. I've used Green Mist once, makes for a beautiful inner corner highlight or just like kind of all over the lid wash of color. And then I am also using Golden Rose today in this very nice pink look that I'm wearing. What else am I including on my December project? Well, I think that we don't have a whole lot left. We have a couple of more Sydney Grace singles, all of these. This one is a multi-chrome. This is a multi-chrome. The rest are eyeshadow singles that I pulled from the Mel's Memory bundle. And then this gold from Lita Cosmetics, I'm also gonna pull it for the December project. I am gonna have also the rest of the Glimmering Creatures Volume 1 bundle from Glaminatrix. I love this shade. Again, I maintain that if you have any of the Glimmering Creatures bundles from Glaminatrix, you don't need the Patrick Ta eyeshadows. You want sparkle, like super strong, glam, high impact metallics, check out Glaminatrix for real. Yeah, the shipping is gonna be a little high because it's coming from Australia, but really, you're gonna get high impact metallics. I think that Glaminatrix makes some of the best metallics on the market. Sorry, I'm trying to not bend this one too much. This is like a taupe shade. It's a little bit crumbly. These have gone through the ringer a little bit in my hands. I don't love the compacts. I think that the compacts are a little bit flimsy. In hindsight, I should have probably just bought a magnetic palette for these. This is very similar to that pink in the Patrick Ta singles. It can be built the same way. The Patrick Ta one is a little bit more magenta, but I think that one's comparable. And then there's the more like copper gold one. I also like to use that one for holiday party looks too. And then couple of more things. Oh, I'm missing a couple of things. I am missing one eyeshadow that I have used because I left it in the bathroom. And it's one of the duochrome single shadows from e.l.f. is Venus Envy. I've already used that once. I'm also included in the project Fairy Lights from Glaminatrix, which is one of the, which is this 6-pan metallics bundle that they released, I think last year or the year before, but very easy one and done shadow for holiday party kind of things. And then I'm also going to include Mermazing from the e.l.f. single shadows, the duochrome liquid shadows. I will include that. And I'm going to also be including Shadow Kiss. No, this is Goddess from Alter Ego, which is the color story from the Natasha Denona Gold palette. I don't remember who I was watching earlier this week, but someone was talking about like gold looks. Oh, I think it was Amanda from Makeup Just for Fun talking about how like the holidays inspire gold eyeshadow looks for her. It was either her or Rachel Palmieri, one of the two. So I figured that some of these gold sparkly shades could be a good option to have. So yes, I have a lot in my December project. No, I don't expect to use every single one of them, especially because I do expect that when I do go on break, there will be a level of couch rotting that will happen because I need to recover. I need rest. But I'm giving myself a lot of room to play and just a lot of variety so that I can have some fun in this time when, you know, with the holidays and end of term and recruitment and all of the things, there is a natural level of stress that happens. So I need to have fun with makeup in December. So it's gonna be a whole bunch of sparkles and chromes. Tell me in the comments, what are you excited to use in December? What have you been using in December? Are there any of your favorites that are in this group, especially some of those more sparkly shades? Thank you once again for joining me in my adventures with makeup. And I hope that you'll consider subscribing to see more of my shenanigans as we go along, especially as I'm starting to assess what's gonna make it until June when I move, what is going to be possibly included in the retirement tour, what will not make it to my next destination with me. I really, really appreciate your time and I hope that you're doing well wherever you are. Bye-bye.